There's a couple major Nintendo Switch stories we have to talk about today, starting with those heavily rumored Sega Genesis games actually going live on NSO Plus expansion pack late last night, and a new indicator that we now have to look at for future games going forward. Then the big talking point for today's video has to do with Splatoon 3 getting its official release date, Nintendo's 2022 ever-changing games lineup, and some surprise DLC that has been added into the expansion pack to further enhance the service. What's up, Nation? If it's your first time on the channel, make sure you join Sunbro Nation by subscribing below, hit the like button on this video if you enjoy it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. As I mentioned, guys, we got a couple major different stories to cover today, and we have to kick it off with a conversation around brand new NSO expansion pack games. Of course, these are the ones that were announced late last night, and the following games that we see added are Space Harrier 2. This one I have no nostalgia for and have not played it at all. It does look like it's an okay, like on rails shooter type experience with, of course, the very sci-fi space style aesthetic to it. So I'm sure people who did grow up with that game and have nostalgia for it will probably find that one somewhat enjoyable. Shining Force 2, which I know will be a big one for a lot of people, a classic RPG. I did not own a Sega Genesis back in the day, but I did have a friend that had one that lived right across from me, so I got to play a lot of titles. Shining Force 2 was not one of them, but I am impressed by the little gameplay trailer that we got with the turn-based action on screen. And if you're a fan of old school classical RPGs, this looks like one that you will want to check out, and I will definitely do so for the first time now that this is added for the service. Now, the big one for me is absolutely hands down Sonic Spinball, as I was never even into pinball growing up or playing it very much at arcades or things like that, but I got seriously obsessed with this game. Of course, a lot of it was the character recognition around Sonic, and me being a huge fan of all of the Sonic games on the Sega Genesis 1 through Sonic and Knuckles. Like, I absolutely enjoyed each of those installments thoroughly, and I just think that this game fits perfectly for Sonic's character. Even the music on the trailer brought back strong nostalgia vibes, and I just can't wait to actually boot up this game and play it again. There's a lot of hidden areas and secret passages you can find while trying to, of course, collect your emeralds and also score the highest points that you can, but that is absolutely the major addition out of this batch of Sega Genesis games. And then we also have to talk about the update schedule going forward, because this is a month after month update now of a batch of 3 Sega Genesis titles, as we just last month in March got the similar update with 3 new Sega Genesis games, and now fast forward to April and we got another 3. Does this mean it's going to be every month? Knowing Nintendo, probably not, but this is definitely a step in the right direction in terms of the frequency of the updates to expansion pack, because we already know the safe bet is one N64 game per month, and now we're getting somewhat of a glimmer of hope that maybe we can expect something like 2 to 3 Sega Genesis games added in every month as well. And I think if they stick to that style schedule, or even if it's every other month, that is still frequently enough that you're having a reason to boot up games, classic games that maybe you have nostalgia for, or ones that you want to go check out for the first time, and it does nothing but add more and more value to the service as time goes on. There's also a nice indicator that we have that we can now somewhat reliably look at when we now look for these type of updates, as so far 9 times out of 10 when server maintenance is scheduled for these NSO apps specifically, like when we see announcements like server maintenance for the Sega Genesis app is happening later this evening, that's looking to be a pretty reliable way to actually anticipate new titles being added to the service. And then it's just a matter of time until Nintendo tweets out the official announcement and uploads their trailer for the games. So I know we talk a lot about Nintendo Switch Online and the expansion pack service, and it's even in part of the next story, but if you guys can't tell already, I'm becoming more of a fan of this as we see things like more frequent updates and really Nintendo treating it like a serious part of their focus and not just an afterthought, because they've already got the 12-month subscription in on all the users and they've got the first payment. They're not just totally forgetting about the service like I was somewhat afraid they may do when we saw the games launch in very poor quality and then we had no roadmap for any of the new games that would be added in. They are definitely so far treating the service how I like to see subscription services being treated. So I want to hear from you guys in the comments down below whether or not you have nostalgia for any of these new Sega Genesis games that were added in just yesterday. Which ones, if any, are you most hyped to play? And do you think that now that we've had back-to-back monthly updates on 3 Sega Genesis games each month, that could be setting the precedent that that's what we can expect going forward? Or do you think that Nintendo's just being nice in the month of April and we probably can't expect any Sega Genesis games in the month of May and this is just a one-off scenario? So I want to hear from you guys on all things Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack and the new Genesis games in the comments down below. Now, the other story we're talking about today has to do with Nintendo's ever-changing 2022 games lineup, as clearly we have seen them make quite a few different moves up to this point in time, most notably Breath of the Wild 2 being pushed to spring of 2023 as opposed to a 2022 title. We then saw them, of course, push up Xenoblade Chronicles 3 in, I think, a move that nobody was anticipating. That game is now set for launch on July 29th, and of course there was a lot of talk and speculation online that because that game was moved up, maybe Splatoon 3 needed more time and it wouldn't be a summer game in 2022, or maybe not even a 2022 game at all. Well, we now have some confirmation around that, and to go over all the details of exactly what's been shared from Nintendo, I do want to quickly hop over to VGC, where they have the full breakdown of what's been added and some brand new value that's been spotted when it comes to Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion packs. Let's quickly read through this article together. Splatoon 3 gets a September release date and a new trailer. Splatoon 2's Octo expansion DLC also added to Switch Online's expansion pack tier. Nintendo has confirmed that Splatoon 3 will be released on September 9th, 2022. The release date announcement was accompanied by a new trailer for the game, which is viewable below. It features over 3 minutes of footage of Splatoon 3's online 4v4 Turf War battles. In addition to Turf War, Splatoon 3 includes a new single-player campaign and a fresh version of the Salmon Run mode. Nintendo said in February that Splatoon 3 would be released this summer. The game is now available to pre-order at selected retailers with a suggested retail price of $59.99. Also beginning today, Nintendo has added Splatoon 2's Octo expansion DLC to Switch Online's expansion pack membership tier. So I definitely think this is a big win for Nintendo on all fronts, as it's very smart marketing, first of all, to not only reveal your release date, but also make that announcement alongside of a free DLC bundle being added in as part of Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack for the game's previous iteration, as if you don't already own Splatoon 2, you may now go pick it up because of the fact that you have access to the free DLC, or if you do own the game and you never picked up the DLC, you might hop back in and actually see what is all there to offer, and you may get more hyped for Splatoon 3 and be on board with that game when it comes out. So I think from a marketing perspective, it makes a ton of sense for Nintendo to do this, and we're now talking about 3 different full-scale DLCs that you would have had to purchase individually being a part of Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack, which really does make that $50 annual price point seem a lot lower, unless if you're just somebody who's not a fan of any of the games that got the DLC, being Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Animal Crossing, and or Splatoon 2. But they now have a wide variety of genres that they include DLC for, and I'll be curious to see if we get more DLC packs, like maybe one day in the far future after the Smash Bros DLC stops selling so well, because I'm pretty sure they're still making a ton of money off of that we could see something like the fighter passes added in there. What I will be curious to see is whether or not mainline Nintendo titles that are brand new get their DLC just included in this pack straight away. Like, are we talking about when Breath of the Wild 2 gets DLC, that something like that would just be included in the expansion pack? Like, it'll definitely be interesting to see how Nintendo views DLC packs as part of the expansion pack going forward, and I'm sure it'll have a lot to do with the overall subscriber number that they see pop up or down with announcements of new DLC additions. And then it's obviously great news on all fronts that we're still getting Splatoon 3 this year. It's not going to be delayed until winter or even into 2023 like some were speculating, and it's just most likely the case that Splatoon 3 just needed a little bit more development time, some polish, some fine tuning, and Xenoblade Chronicles 3 was just further along in development in Nintendo's eyes and chose to swap these games around, because I do think it was likely that maybe Nintendo was originally planning Splatoon 3 to be in that late July time slot, and then they've just kind of flip-flopped the games. But regardless, we do have, if you look at the roadmap, a big wide open gap in the month of August, and it'll be interesting to see what Nintendo has up their sleeves for that month. You also have to have the conversation that Splatoon 3 is launching in the beginning of September, and we could have a late September game as well. I've seen some talk online suggesting that because Nintendo is doing all of these announcements in trailers like this, that they're not planning on holding a summer direct, and this is a clear indication of that. I definitely do not think that is the case, and I personally am still fully expecting a June time Nintendo Direct to take place. I don't think Nintendo is done this year at all. I think 2020 definitely threw a wrench in game development and slowed down a lot of projects, and we are still going to see a very packed year in the year of 2022, and I think a lot of these heavily rumored titles are going to be worked on and hopefully presented and revealed to us at the summertime Nintendo Direct. And if anything, to me, this is more of an indication that Nintendo is essentially clearing the map a little bit, so we don't have to wonder about when these games are going to launch and focus on them too long at their summertime Direct, and instead we already know the info on these existing titles that have been announced, and that leaves them more time time to present new games to us. So in my opinion, even though we are not getting Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 this year in 2022, I do think that this is still going to be historically one of the greatest years ever in Nintendo's history in terms of new releases, new major titles. If we get games to top off this year like Metroid Prime 1 Remake, and if we get games like Wind Waker and or Twilight Princess HD ported to the Switch, this will absolutely put it over the top for me personally. I want to hear from you guys at this point in the video, all your thoughts and opinions on both the stories we talked about today, with Nintendo Switch Online expanding with back-to-back monthly updates on Sega Genesis games, and whether or not you think we're going to see them do that going forward. And definitely share with me your overall thoughts and opinions on Splatoon 3 getting its release date. Do you think this is some kind of indication that we're not getting a summertime direct like I've seen some people say online, or do you think that this is Nintendo indeed clearing the map a little bit so they can focus on other unannounced games? And does this new DLC pack being added into the expansion pack do anything for you in terms of value in your eyes and what Nintendo is currently asking for it? So I want to hear from you guys, regardless of where you fall, and all your thoughts and opinions on all the stories we talked about today in the comments down below before you leave the video, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around these topics. Make sure you check out yesterday's video if you haven't already, where we discussed the Klonoa games that are headed to the Nintendo Switch and some brand new information that just hit for that title, and also a discussion around all of the leaks that have been hitting Nintendo Switch Online and the reason why we may be able to expect some very hype NES games to be added to the service in the future. Also, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.